Welcome back to the Elevate With Us podcast. If you've been tuning in each week, I would really appreciate it. Don't forget to like it, follow it, and share it. So listen, we have a very, very special guest today. He is a retired Navy, a former realtor, and now he is a loan officer and mortgage broker. I'm so excited to welcome Sam Gorniak to the podcast today.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here. I appreciate you. I know there was a long list. I'm glad you could squeak me in because we had a cancellation. I really appreciate it.
Oh, knock it off. He was kind of voluntold to come. I kind of said, hey, what are you doing today? Nothing? All right, let's do the podcast.
Well, I mean, it kind of went like that. But the truth of the matter is there's, real estate agents and buyers, they have so many mortgage questions, right? And it's interesting because You can look at many places for information, and most of the time I look for something because maybe like I need to look at a matrix. I'm trying to figure out a problem, and most of the time I find something that's grossly inaccurate, and I'm thinking, how did this even make it on the web? So I think it's good that you have a mortgage broker, someone that's honest, someone that's gonna shoot people straight and tell them how to get money to buy a home.
Well, if you know Sammy G, then you know honesty and straight shooting. So hopefully everybody's ready for that. So tell us a little bit about your background. I know a lot about your background, but a lot of people don't. And I think it's really important. So you grew up in Chicago, right?
Yes.
Tell us about kind of like the short version, growing up, and then how you got here today.
Okay, very interesting. So
Everybody wants to know more about you.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, it's interesting because it's kind of weird talking about yourself, right? So yes, I grew up in Chicago. I was born in the late 70s, so I grew up. Most of my youth was on the south side of Chicago. Okay, most of you hear about the south side of Chicago because it's always in the newspaper, right? So
the newspaper, you just aged yourself.
Yeah, the newspaper.
Who reads the newspaper?
Okay, the news. I'm sorry, it's on TV, right? You hear about all the violence, the gang violence and stuff. But in the 80s, yeah, we had a lot of that. In the 80s, Chicago was very interesting, in my opinion, and my recollection of it. In the pretty much predominantly Italian neighborhood that I grew up in, it wasn't uncommon for us to get into trouble. This one day, I was about 17 years old, and I'll never forget this. I was at my grandmother's house. By the way, I lived in a 2-flat in Chicago, so I lived on the second floor. My grandparents lived on the first floor, and I didn't go to school for whatever reason. I don't recall why, but I was downstairs by my grandmother. My grandmother's probably 75 years old at this time. I'm like probably 17. Right. And I hear this knock on the door, and I'll never forget. I opened the door, and there's a guy there, and there's a guy. He's probably in his 40s. He's an African-American dude. He's got a uniform on. And what's interesting is,
wait, you didn't recognize the uniform when you saw it?
No, I didn't really recognize it. I know that sounds weird.
No, it's okay. I mean, I was just wondering. I don't think I've ever asked you that question. Interesting.
Well, what's interesting when I opened the door, right? By the way, nowadays, not many people just randomly open the door, right? When somebody
one knocks.
When someone knocks, you're hiding. You're like, "Who's here?" You're checking the ring, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, get the coffee, right? It's crazy, right? But he knocks on the door, and I open the door, and I remember like I didn't like crack the door, like I
it was fully open.
Fully opened the door. I mean, it's like it was yesterday. There's this dude, and he's got a white uniform on. He's got a Navy uniform on, but at that time, I think he's a cop.
Oh, he was wearing all white?
He had all white on.
And you thought he was a cop?
It was, okay, in Jacksonville here, there's sailors everywhere.
Right.
This is a big military town. In Chicago, yeah, we got Navy Pier, right? But there's no, like, warships there. There's no big bases. Yeah, there's boot camp far away, but I'm growing up in the city. Right,
so there isn't a big military presence there,
yeah.
So you were not familiar with it.
So I opened the door, and I'm thinking, damn, what did I do? I'm thinking, man, did we do something stupid? Like, I didn't say it, but I'm thinking, like, do we, like, throw some rocks and through some guy's car window or something?
Uh-oh.
Damn, right? So I'm like, I'm a little caught off guard, and I'm like, hey, I don't know what you're looking for, but I think you're in the wrong place. I said something like that.
Yeah.
because I didn't know what he was doing there,
Yeah.
right? And I didn't really know the uniform. I thought he was a cop. And in the all Italian neighborhood, there ain't a lot of cops. Okay, so and if there are, we know who they are. So I open the door and he says, "No, man, I'm looking for you." And I'm like, "Me?"
Did he know your name? Or was that just what they say? I'm looking for you.
I wish I was never a Navy. I was never a military recruiter, so I can't answer that.
Okay.
There's probably somebody watching, laughing right now.
Let us know if that's what you say. I have no idea. I wasn't recruited by the military. They never knocked on my door.
Yeah. So he says to me, he says, "No, man, I'm looking for you." And I'm thinking, I think I might have skipped school. I don't remember. I think I'm in trouble.
Wait, you think you skipped school? It was a school day and you weren't there.
Yeah, but I might have been sick, but I don't remember. So, what comes to my mind is, damn, I'm like, what the hell did I do, right? So he basically says, "Hey, man, have you ever thought about joining the military? I know you're getting ready to get out of high school." So he must have knew something about me. And for the recruiters out there, maybe back then there was a list. Maybe a list kind of came out. Like I doubt, or maybe he was going door to door. I really don't know. Nor did I ever ask.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we have this talk at the door.
He doesn't come inside.
He does not come inside. It's a good question. He doesn't come inside.
Okay.
And he didn't ask. To my recollection, we just boom, because I'm a little caught off guard, right? I'm a little nervous, and he gives me his card. And he says, "Hey, man, if you ever want to know a little bit more, why don't you give me a call?" And back then, I don't think we had cell phones, right? So I had to call the office. And I remember saying, "Okay, dude, hey, where's your office at?" Because he said, "Hey, my office is downtown Chicago." I said, "Okay, where?" He told me. He said, "Hey, it's in this building." And I remember I knew the building.
Okay.
So I basically had a conversation with him. And he said, "Yeah, I'm up here on this floor." I think he was in a building with like a mall, like a popular mall, maybe at that time.
Like a shopping center?
Yeah, like a shopping center.
Okay.
Because this was really downtown Chicago.
Okay.
Like by the way, I grew up like 15 blocks, maybe.
Okay.
Like a mile.
Was it in the fall or in the winter? Was it like 90? Because we graduated high school in 97. So was it 96 or 97? Like how far from graduation were you? Do you think? Really far?
I want to say it was probably January.
Okay, so it was like the year of graduation.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was cold.
Yeah, it was cold. So what happened was I remember I took the bus. I don't think I even told anybody because I think I just took the bus and I went to the recruiting office. So I'll never forget. I get there. And there's all the recruiting offices are there. You got the Marines.
Oh, for all the military branches.
You got the
They're
Marines.
in the same building. Oh,
You got the Navy, all of the branches,
Army,
right?
Air Force.
Yeah, and they all had the cool posters out in front, right? So I go in there, and I don't think I actually called ahead. I think I just popped in.
Okay.
And there were two dudes in there, and one of them was a submariner. Was an MM2. I can't remember his name, but what's interesting is him and I end up 10 years later meeting up on a base in Connecticut.
Okay.
And we became good friends. At that time, 20 years ago, I can't remember his name right now. So I get there, the recruiter's there, the dude's there, the submarine guy. And I basically say, "Hey, man, what do I got to do to join?" And for a recruiter, that's like...
I mean, you just made his day.
That's like winning the Powerball. You know what I mean?
Like I'm sure they chase people all day long.
Yeah.
So you're like, what do I have to do?
Yeah, and they got quotas too, I don't really, that was never my position, so I don't know a ton about it. But so then what happened was they basically said, "Hey, this is simple. You got to go take an exam."
The ASFAB or
yeah,
something?
well, actually, no. You know what happened? They said, "Hey, sit down here, take this exam."
Like right then?
Yes, they give you a practice.
Oh.
And I blew this practice exam like out the water. Like I got like a 90 out of 100. I did something like really well. I'm 17. My dad's about 57 years old. Okay. So he's a lot older. Sometimes like nowadays I'm in my 40s, but my daughter's already 12. You see, my dad was 57 years old. So I tell my dad, "Hey, I'm thinking about, I went downtown, I took this test. They think I did great. I want to go in the Navy."
And are you excited?
Yeah, I was excited because I saw the purpose.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they explained to me, the recruiters, of course, they're trying to sell me, right? But they're explaining to me, like, hey, it's not about you. It's about giving back to the country. It's about doing the right thing. It's about getting the hell out of the hood, and let's take your life somewhere else.
Okay.
Right.
And that must have filled a hole you had. You must have felt a little lost.
Well,
And maybe you didn't know it.
Well, that's interesting. It's like, back to what you said. Yeah, I was excited, right? I was excited because there's a big world out there. You know what I mean? I mean, that may sound like out of a movie, but there's a big world out there. And when you're stuck in this concrete jungle for 17 years in a very diverse place, and there's not a lot going on, you're like, damn, what's out there?
Sure.
Right? So that was kind of like my thought, even at 17. So my dad really did not want me to go in the military.
Oh, he didn't want you to.
No, not at all. He was basically like, I think he was actually kind of mad that I had went and took that test without talking to him.
I bet you that happens a lot, though. I would imagine. I mean, at least it does in the movies.
Well, now that I'm a parent of 2 daughters, right? And you have 2 boys.
Mm-hmm.
If my daughters did that, I would probably think, man, I might lose one of my kids. Not like they're gonna die, but they're gonna go in the military and then they're gonna get stationed somewhere else, and I'm not gonna see my kid, right? I don't remember my dad ever saying it like that. Like, hey, man, I really would like you to go to the college around here so I could be in your life.
But how many people in your town or in your block or whatever, in your area left?
Oh, well, like nobody.
Yeah, so I mean, that's really what it is that was in the culture of where you grew up, is that everybody stayed there.
Yeah.
So it was probably never on your dad's radar that you were ever leaving, right? And so that must have been like a huge wake-up call, like, what the heck? I didn't think Sammy was going to go. Yeah. If Sammy's going to go to college, he's just going to go somewhere in Chicago, and he never thought you were going to leave. So yeah, that's a different perspective that you probably never thought about,
I think I scored in the 90s on my ASVAB out of like a 99. So when you're at MEPS, I believe when you're at MEPS, and I don't know if it's still that way, they tell you, hey, because of your score, you qualify for all of these jobs.
Okay.
And I was qualified for pretty much every job in the Navy. Okay. But I went in the military to go to BUDS.
So if you don't know what BUDS is what makes you a
Navy SEAL.
A Navy SEAL, which is not easy.
Okay, so my only intention, because I was a swimmer, by the way, we didn't talk about that. When I was in high school, I was a swimmer, and I played water polo. I was extremely comfortable in the water.
Well, and you were an athlete overall, though.
Yeah, I was an athlete, right?
You boxed, you played hockey, you wrestled, swam.
I wrestled, but not really well.
That's okay. It doesn't matter. It's still a muscle you had to exercise and whatnot. I don't mean like muscle. I mean like a brain muscle when you're doing an individual sport. It's, so it's not like you were like, you just woke up one day and you were like, oh, hey, like, I think I'm pretty athletic, so I'm going to become a Navy SEAL. I mean, you had a background for it.
So anyways, I'm supposed to go to BUDS. I've been negotiating with the detailers to go to SEAL training, and they find out I have a bilateral hernia. Okay.
And you didn't know.
I had no idea. So I'm at MEPS, and part of MEPS is you have to do a physical examination with a doctor, like a real MD, just in case you're wondering. So
as opposed to the other doctor.
Well, they have exam rooms there. I don't really remember all of it, but I go in there and I do my exam, and they're looking at every part of your body.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which is interesting because I would have never thought that, So they give me this exam, and the doctor says, hey, dude, you got a hernia. And I'm like, really? And I didn't really know too much about a hernia at that time. I'm 17. It's just not my thing. So I go, and they say, hey, dude, you can't join the Navy right now. And I'm like, oh, that's weird, right? Because I didn't really understand the significance,
the impact it would have,
or the impact of having this bilateral hernia, right?
Okay.
So I go home and I tell my dad, "Hey, man, I got a bilateral hernia, and they won't let me in the military." And my dad, I never forget, my dad's like, so my dad calls. He's got some doctor friends. He calls a doctor, says, "Hey, I think my kid's got a bilateral hernia. Can I bring him in?" That day, like right then, he's like, "Hey, let's go. We're taking a ride."
Okay.
We go to a guy's house. I don't know the guy.
I mean, you don't go to a doctor's office. You go to a doctor at his house.
I go to a guy's house.
Okay.
It's kind of Italian neighborhood thing. Go to a guy's house, and he says, "Hey, I gotta check you." I'm not going to get into all the specifics. He checks me. He says, "Hey, dude, you have a bilateral hernia. You have a hernia on both sides." I'm like, "Wow, no kidding. Well, what do we do?" And he says, "Hey, well, we're gonna do an operation." I'm like, "Wow, okay." I'm like, "Now?" And he's like, "No."
I can totally see you saying that. Like when you
like, right now?
Like, "I'm ready. Okay, get me open. All right."
He's
We're
like,
in the kitchen table.
He's like, "No." Right. So basically I go to the recruiter and I say, "Hey, man, I'm going to have this surgery. And when it's done, I'll let you know and then we'll proceed."
Okay.
So anyways, I end up having a bilateral hernia operation.
Repair.
Which was extremely painful. I get that situated. I go back and they tell me, "Hey, dude, you can't go to Buds."
Because of the hernia repair?
Because of the hernia repair.
So you have a hernia repair. Your hopes and dreams of becoming a Navy SEAL are flushed down the toilet, tragically, because of a hernia you didn't know you had. But you do end up joining the Navy.
Yes.
And instead of becoming a Navy SEAL, you become I
become a fire control technician.
A fire control technician on
submarines,
which is really cool. So something, and I'm pretty sure I'm the only human in America that didn't know submarines go fast. Like, I definitely, when you told me about being on submarines, and one day we were talking about how long it took you to get from California to Hawaii, it was like months. I remember not understanding because I definitely...
It's about 2 weeks.
Yeah, I definitely confuse submarines and torpedoes. They're like the same shape.
Sure.
And they shoot out of them, right? So in my mind, they were one and the same thing. It makes a lot of sense why submarines go slow, but if you didn't know, submarines go at a snail's pace. Really slow to not be detected because they do espionage. What's the other name for espionage? They spy. So they have to go slow. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
And you had a really amazing career in the Navy.
Yeah.
You were one of the youngest people to become a
Chief Petty Officer.
Whatever that means. That's an
E7. Yeah,
E7. And how old are you?
I was 25 years old.
You were 25 years old. So this is going to be data you're going to make up because I'm assuming you don't know. But what is the average age of someone that becomes a E7?
Oh, what's interesting is I don't know what it is today. I
Well,
think today it's probably younger because the fleet, the Navy is undermanned, right? So they have to promote more people quickly.
Well, how about when you were in the Navy? How old do you think someone was that became an E7?
Okay,
they were like in their 30s?
Nah, let's talk about that. So let me step back one more thing to the recruiter. The recruiter, if you're thinking about going into the military, listen, the recruiter made my career. Not only did the recruiter change the trajectory of my life, the recruiter changed the trajectory of my life. If I didn't go in the Navy, I might be dead today or in prison or something totally different because the neighborhood I grew up in, we had the capacity to get into some interesting trouble.
Okay.
So that recruiter changed the trajectory of my life. Not only that, but the submarine guy in that recruiting office, he told me, he said, "Sam, if you go into this rating, it's undermanned. You will get promoted every time that you go up." Boom, 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 boom. He had that data. That dude, that that machinist mate, he allowed me to become a chief at 7.5 years at 25 years old.
Right.
Because he gave me that data.
Right.
So remember that. Yes, I was one of the youngest guys. What was the age in the quarters? Interesting. I show up to the chief's quarters on September 16th, 2006. Somewhere around there. Close.
I mean, you don't remember all the things, but
I remember that.
It's impressive you remember that date.
Yeah, I remember that. So I showed up to the USS Wyoming in Kings Bay, Georgia. In that Chiefs quarters, there's about 18 guys. I would say 12 of them were over 40.
Oh, wow. Okay.
One, Byron Stokely, by the way. Byron, if you watch this, I love you, brother. How you doing? Byron was the ship's gentleman. Okay,
what does that mean?
Byron was probably 55 years old.
Wait. What's the ship's gentleman?
He was the oldest guy on the ship. We called him the ship's gentleman.
And that's like a nickname?
Yeah, it was a nickname. And what's funny is I was given a tour one time as a chief, and this older lady, I was given a tour to some congressman or something like that. And one of the ladies was like probably like 80.
Okay.
And she saw Byron. Byron and I were the only ones in the Chiefs quarters, and she saw Byron and then asked me, how old are the guys on the boat?
She was like a little worried.
She's probably thinking, how the hell we defending the country with these old guys, right? That's probably what she was thinking.
Oh, boy.
So there's probably 12 or 40 plus. One was 50. And then most were probably in the 30s. I don't think anybody, maybe one guy was in the 20s with me. I was the youngest guy in there. Not only was I the youngest guy in the Chiefs quarters, I was one of the youngest guys. Well, I was the youngest guy in my division, so everyone that worked for me was older than me.
Wow.
Every one of them. And when I showed up, they were like, damn, who let this kid out of school?
Right, because they thought you were like 15.
Yeah.
No, I get that.
Because I looked young, at that time.
So you retired from the Navy and you had a career at Johnson & Johnson, but we're really here to talk about mortgages.
Let's talk about Johnson & Johnson really quick.
Okay.
So I went to a job fair. I met a few amazing dudes who were working at Johnson & Johnson. And
wait, was your job fair in Jacksonville?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was in Jacksonville at the Shriner Center, which I don't think exists anymore. I heard they tore down the Shriner Center.
I have no idea.
So it was at the Shriner Center. I met some guys. I'm not going to use their last names, but I met this dude named Mike, this guy named Sean. They ended up becoming my bosses, and that company. Well, the company is what it is because of the people, like any company, right?
Absolutely.
The people are just so good, and they're Johnson & Johnson. When we get an application for a position, if we post a job, there's 400 applicants.
Oh, I'm sure, absolutely.
I mean, competition's fierce, right?
Yeah.
And that place was just amazing. The people are amazing. If you're looking for a career in the medical device industry or pharma, J&J is a top company. The 𝗏𝗏𝗄, if you don't know what that is, look it up. The 𝗏𝗏𝗄 is outstanding, and they're outstanding. And for me to resign from there was tough for me because I really liked going to work.
No, you really liked the people there. They really liked you.
Yeah, it was such an awesome environment,
Yeah.
So,
but you took a risk. You took a risk and you left a W-2 job paying pretty good.
Yes.
To join me, right?
Yeah.
In a real estate venture.
Yep.
I mean, it wasn't when you left. We hadn't opened up Realty One Group, had we?
No, you hadn't.
No, we had not opened it yet.
No.
And we were just selling real estate and just doing mortgages. And since then, we've opened up a brokerage, a real estate brokerage, and a mortgage brokerage, because then you were with a different mortgage brokerage. So a lot of changes in a really, really short period of time.
Yeah, so if you're wondering what Tanya's talking about, Tanya is the broker and owner of Realty One Group, and I'm the broker and owner of Metal Mortgage with two T's, METTLE, by the way.
So
Metal
perfect. That was my next question for you, is to tell us the name of your mortgage brokerage, but more importantly, to explain what that word means. Metal, not like METAL or MEDD. Is it two Ds?
It is two Ds.
MEDDLE, which is what I thought of immediately when you told me the name. I did hate it. I'm being really honest with you.
She hated it.
But when you told me what it meant, it's really powerful and really neat. So why don't you tell everybody what the word metal, METTLE, what it means?
Well, what's interesting is if you're watching this and you're thinking about starting a company, okay, to find a name that has really never been used before.
So hard.
It's so hard, right?
So hard.
So, like, usually the name's already been used, the URL is purchased, the brand, there's branding around it, whatever.
It's copyrighted. I mean,
It's
it could be. There's all kinds of. I mean, there's a lot of. It can be hard.
It's copyrighted, right? Well, in the mortgage industry, there's a lot of scrutiny on your brokerage name because I'm not going to get into all of the legal stuff, but when you're in the money business, when you handle or touch money, you have to abide by so many rules and regulations and the background checks you have to go through and all of the things, right? That your name, they don't want you to use the similar name as another mortgage company because then maybe you then are terrible. You're doing terrible things. And now the other business reaps what you're doing. Like now they're kind of screwed too, right? So I was trying to find a name that really nobody had used.
Oh, I don't think anyone's used it because no one really knows what it means.
Well,
but you're going to change it, and we're going to change it right here.
Listen, there's a guy out there. By the way, I've never spoke to the guy. I have been meaning to email him. His name is John Mettle, Mettle.
What?
And John, I believe, I don't remember, but John is a loan officer for sure. He may be a mortgage broker.
Okay.
And if you go to Google and you type in Mettle and mortgage,
he comes up?
John comes up. But the name of his company, to the best of my knowledge, is not Mettle Mortgage.
Okay.
But his name is, I believe, John Mettle.
Cool.
So he was the only one that I found during my research using that name.
Right. So like the affiliation that it could somehow be linked to.
Yes.
Okay.
But I liked the meaning behind the word metal. And the meaning really is, like overcoming, working through. And that really summarizes getting a mortgage.
Stay tuned for part 2 of this Elevate With Us podcast.